for joining. Thanks everyone for joining, and I'm Malmi Samarasinghe. So I'm representing Diversity Collective Lanka. And the intent behind Diversity Collective is to really make a more diverse tech environment in Sri Lanka. So promoting diversity in every sense of that word. And we do it through four main pillars. So school pillars, entrepreneurship, in the corporate sectors, and also higher education. So if anyone's interested in participating in those initiatives that we have, please reach out via socials, LinkedIn, or also check out our website. This series in particular is the Tech Voices Spotlight series, and this is the Woman of the Month series. Today we have Malmi Samarasinghe. So the idea behind this is to really showcase different women in different areas in technology, and give them a platform to speak about the wonderful things that they're doing. So let me start by introducing Malmi. So Malmi has over 11 years of experience in the software industry. She's got a degree from the Columba External Uni, and then she's also done an MSc from the University of Wales, Cardiff Metropolitan. She's worked across a number of big names in the industry here. So she's been at Virtusa as a software engineer. She's moved to Cisco Labs, which was previously known as Leapset. And then she moved back to Virtusa, and now she's at Wiley as an associate engineering manager. So real breadth of experience there. So a lot we can learn from Malmi. So to kick us off, Malmi, let me ask you, what got you interested in IT?
Okay, so there could be serious reasons and as well as funny reasons as well. So I guess I'll start with something funny. So since I was young, my parents are coming from a background banking. So they usually wear a sari or a shirt and trouser, right? When I was young, I really didn't want to wear a sari. So that's the kind of reason I wanted to do a job, which actually I didn't have to wear a sari. And my handwriting is terrible. So because of that, I wanted to, some occupation or any area that I'm interested where I don't have to write a lot. So I guess that was my, younger days, what I had in mind. And then actually when we schooling, right, we find different interests in our areas. So what I found interesting for myself is mostly math, science in that area. And I continued my studies to O-levels, A-levels, and based on that, so I landed with computers. I got a passion towards it. I loved it and how it aligned with what I loved. So I guess that's a, little sprout which grew into where I am today as a start.
Yeah, so you didn't want to wear saris and you liked maths.
Oh, yeah, I did.
All right. So what skills did you have to build then, to get into tech? You had an interest, but so how did you kind of build that skill set to get in?
Yeah. So if we look at software industry, I'm coming from a software engineering background, right? So when it comes to software industry, there are so many streams that anybody can pick. Out of them, I actually picked being a software engineer. So at initial start, I would say when I was doing A-levels, also I didn't have much context on this. But after the A-levels, when I was moving towards the higher education and on where I'm degree, likewise, I kind of found a path for growing into a software engineer, or else building the technical skill set that is required for being a software engineer. I wouldn't call it back then at the start. I actually knew per se like 100%, okay, this is the path where I'm going. But that was the start, and little step by step, and the visibility that you gain with time, interacting with multiple people around you, and with your educational degree path, and now also at the supportive exams or professional courses that you look around, and when you find, so you kind of find a path forward. So that's why I took step by step, and I completed my degree. I did some professional exams around it, and I kind of figured, I would say, what exactly was my interest area when it comes to software industry. As I mentioned earlier, right, it could be a variety of things that you can become in software industry. But among them, with all these little steps that we took, I kind of figured out where I wanted to go or where I want to head towards when it comes to this software industry, which was software engineering. So yeah,
there's so
that's how
many
my journey
roles,
started.
like you said, Malmi, and you mentioned that going to things like career fairs. What do you think of career fairs? Are they useful? Have you been to any?
Well, after A-levels, right? If we take the education system in Sri Lanka, we have a little break after A-levels. So, I would call it a time to figure out what you want to do next, because it's a break, because you have been doing exams, or following up something, and it's a little bit of break. So my mom used to take me into these educational fairs, which actually expanded the horizon of thinking or opportunities out there, or the paths that I could follow, figure out where we want to take it. I think I started with little courses, not started with the degree. I mean, that started as well. But at the same time, I did follow some networking areas and some basic software, or I would say computer skills building, right? So I think that's a really great start. I mean, now you don't necessarily have to go for exhibition per se, right? So much of resources are available over the internet. But then again, back then, I used to, my mom took me there. I think that helped me a lot to figure out, or, give me a starting point to find a path. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. And like you said, now it's online. You can find online career fairs and get all of that, from the comfort of your home. So now you spoke a little bit about, building your technical skills through, formal degree type education and also certificates that you got as well. And what about other skills that you needed? So like the power soft skills, how did that play in?
Okay. So if we look at myself now, I mean, we do hire a lot of people for software industry, right? I mean, that's part of our job as well for a long time now. So what we looked at, I mean, I didn't know exactly what they have looked for back then. I guess we look at the right skill set, technical skill set, and also at the same time, you have to have a good personality and right attitude. And we should see a little bit of a spark on a passion towards this industry, because that would be your driving factor of becoming a good engineer. So I think those are the main things when when a newcomer comes to a interview, that's what we look for. I mean, technical skills can be learned, but that little bit of having a good attitude, good teamwork, showcasing that within a short period of time. I mean, when you go for an interview, it's just 1 hour, 1.5 hours maximum, right? Interview will feel them. So those right attitude and right technical skills will get you where you want to get at, because you have to build that path that has to come along with you to get into this industry and continue the path.
Really good tips from you. Things like you mentioned teamwork, attitude, and a lot of the times those are not what we focus on. And it could be sort of the more formal or technical learning. So really good points there. Okay. And how about, so we're also going to talk about approaching problems. So when it comes to problem solving, what is your experience with that? Maybe, give us either an example in a work setting or your personal life. How do you approach problems?
Okay. So I'm more or less talking from being a software engineer, right? So it's part and parcel of our day-to-day life. You get a technical problem. Basically, you have to come up with a solution and put it out there, right? That's what we do as our job. So it's a technical problem mostly we are solving. Along our career, when we grow in our career, it might span into a further bigger scope or bigger range of problems that we need to solve. It may not only get limited into technical, but rather a different scope of people, management, and everything. But when it comes to a problem, the start or the how we should look at a problem is same, right? First of all, I mean, you need to understand, okay, what's the problem? Who are the stakeholders or the related parties around the problem? And then exactly identifying stakeholders around it is really important. And then you come up with a solution. It may be a single solution or it may be multiple solutions around it. And you need to exactly think when you are in the software industry or any industry for that matter, you have to align it with the business or else align it with the values or goals for that company or for that team for that matter, right? And then you have to talk with these stakeholders who are around related to it, and you have to get their buying in. You have to get them to agree to solve that problem in the approach that you came up with. And you need to find the right skill set because you don't usually solve the problem on your own, right? You have to find the right skill set means you have to find the right team to solve the problem with you to execute it. So I guess that's a common approach that we take from the very beginning for any sort of a technical problem. But then again, yeah, to sum it up, usually I would call it in that way. I mean, figuring things out, understanding the problem really well, the context behind it, stakeholders, and then come up with multiple approaches or solutions. And then you basically find the right skill set with the people and you execute it, right? So I would say, summarize out there, that would be it. But usually we don't come as a package with all of that skill set in our hand, right? We may not know. And there are so many areas that we may have to learn along this path and with our experience that we gain in each and every step of our career progression. So I guess that we can go into a bit more detail if that's needed, but it's not a skill set you are expected to be built into you, but rather you will improve or learn and add to your experience with time in your career path.
You learn some of this kind of on the job as you go.
Exactly.
So, can you give us an example of, when you solve problems, there'll be some problems, like you said, you're learning as you go and you might not get it right. Can you tell us one of those situations for you when, you thought maybe you could have done it better next time?
Oh, I could. Okay, that's a pretty normal situation when it comes to, first thing, okay, let me tell you a situation. So there was this, I think I was back then as a lead, I was leading a team and we had to, come up with the technical solution. So we did come up with a solution and I shared the approach with the team and, people were ready. We had the right skill set with us and everything. But I guess I didn't realize the stakeholders around it because we are mostly working with international crowd. And, there are a lot of stakeholders around when we are giving a solution. That whoever we have to get it. As I mentioned in the previously, we need to understand the stakeholders, right? I guess I didn't properly communicate for these people, whoever the stakeholders which are around that problem, which actually led to a bigger problem. So I can recall my architect calling out to me, okay, Malmi, I want to have a quick chat with you. So I knew, oh my God, something is wrong. So I went to a discussion with him and he said, okay, there's something going on like that. Looks like your solution or the approach is not aligned or properly communicated with the proper stakeholder. So the instant he said that, I knew, okay, I missed that. But then again, okay, that moment, I felt like, oh my, what am I supposed to do, right? So I made a mistake. But the thing is, at that point, I learned, before that probably, but this is the example I'm taking, but you are allowed to make mistakes. But then again, the fact is you have to learn out of it. And, you have to come up with a couple of steps, work with your managers or seniors, leads. It could be any person, right, who will be supporting you to figure out a solution to move ahead with. Because look, now we are in a problem, right? Look at it as another problem that you have in hand to solve and figure out a way to move forward. So what my mentor at the time, my architect, what he told me was, okay, now we have this situation. In your point of view, he asked me, what would you prefer to do now? What do you think next steps would be? He actually provided me some guidance. And then, he said, look, you have my backing, but then again, you go ahead and talk to the stakeholders. Don't worry about it. Go ahead and talk about it. And today I'm thankful for that guidance today, because that's the first time I stepped out of my comfort zone and reached out to those stakeholders, level of stakeholders. So when you grow in your career, right, there will be things which are out of your comfort zone, which you will have to do. But then again, at the same time, I really appreciate the fact that he had my back when I was stepping into that. So that gave me more exposure, at the same time, how to handle that situation. And it encouraged me to continue to do the same, and also to be such a person for my juniors at some point of time. So I think
like
that was a big mess that I created some time back.
I like the positive approach that you take to problems, you know, that you see them as opportunities where you can grow and change and progress in your career. So that's a really good outlook. And this is a great way to get into feedback. So in terms of feedback, what are your thoughts or advice on both giving and receiving feedback? So maybe let's start with receiving feedback, because your example just before was about you receiving feedback.
Okay. Before I move into that, Rory, if you don't mind, I'll let you. I mean, when it comes to these, especially for software industry, right? Being an engineer, what it is feedback for you, right? Because here we get, you know, either 6 months evaluations or quarterly evaluations. And likewise, there'll be lots of, you know, when it comes to IT industry, always you will be, because it's a moving industry, right? You have to get yourself upskilled every day. Or, you know, keep up to your new technology changes, especially being a software engineer, right? If you're moving in the lead architect, that direction. So you have to get yourself up to date with all these technical aspects as much as possible. So when you're moving in this path, because it's so dynamic, there's always, we have this in every company pretty much I have worked with, we do have this feedback, right? Initially, when we were introduced to this feedback, what it is a feedback? It might come to you officially or unofficially. It could be formal, informal. It could be from your colleagues. It could be from your managers, leads, architects. It could be from different stakeholders. For that matter, it could be from different geolocations itself, right? So first of all, it's what it is a feedback. It's something about you or your team, how you do things, right? So it might come to you in a positive or negative way, right? It could be, there's a lot of variance when it comes to feedback, or maybe in a one-on-one session. So as I mentioned earlier, right? So when I received that feedback from my architect, initially I was like shocked. Okay, something is really wrong, right? You might get mixed feelings about it. You might get, different feelings about how you receive the feedback, because ultimately it's about you or something you have done, right? So you need to, you know, take a minute, break it down, and, you know, understand what is going on. Take the step back and evaluate and see what is this, right? Okay, is there something that I really need to pay attention, or is something that I have to discuss? So based on the situation, first of all, you have to be a really good listener. I mean, don't panic, because it's normal, right? I mean, you get mixed feelings. It's normal when it comes to feedback. But then again, if it is something really bad, take a step back and wait for a moment. But then again, see whether it is coming from a good intention. Put yourself in their shoes and try to understand what this person is trying to say, right? So leave out all those, if it comes in a harsh way and all that, leave out that, you know, part of, what do you call, negativity or everything aside, and try to get the essence out of it. How will this help me to evolve? Will this help me to move forward? Will this help me to shape up my career path? Likewise, think about it. Take time. It is okay to take time. In the previous time also, when I heard it, I was like literally shocked. And I knew I have made a mistake. But then again, that minute or two will give you a time to think and see how to move forward from it. So feedback, I would call really important, really, really important to progress in your career, because that's where you will learn from your seniors' perspective, different perspective, how they feel about you. Doesn't mean you have to do what everybody else, whole world says, right? I mean, that's not the thing about this feedback. So you just have to be yourself. At the same time, you should be open for feedback or comments, or it could be anything, right? So be open for it and be good listeners. That could be the trick. And it is something you have to master. I wouldn't call myself a master because it is something you will master, I think, in your entire life, right? So I think it's something we have to continue to master and learn out of it and continue to move ahead with our being in this software industry, being especially a software engineer. It is really important to be like that, I guess. So having that good listening skills, having a little bit of patience, how to act, it's a learning for your life.
Yeah. And you mentioned, feedback is a normal thing. And a lot of companies have it built into, their HR processes. However, there are some people who wait for those events to get feedback, but there are some people who ask for feedback, whenever a project ends or whenever a release goes out, any opportunity. How would you suggest people to, do the whole go about feedback? Should they wait for their appraisals or should they ask whenever necessary?
Okay, let me put it like this, right? So let's say, we can kind of link it to you having a technical problem or whatever in any problem in the office environment or as your professional environment, right? So feedback, or I would call it a one-on-one, right? Or else you can reaching out to a person. If you're not getting that feedback, it means it might sound like two ways, right? You may not be open for feedback because some people are then reluctant to give you feedback because you don't exactly accept the feedback very positively. And the other thing could be, and that process is not there, right? So in that case, is one thing you can initiate is if you feel like, okay, I need some guidance, by all means, reach out for help, reach out for guidance. If you're in a problem, don't sit on the problem and let it weigh you down and stress you down, right? Reach out to somebody who you think, right person, pick the right person in your perspective, whom I should talk to. It could be your colleague, it could be your manager, it could be your lead, it could be your architect, it could be a project manager, anybody, right, in this forum. So talk to somebody and get that help, ask for that help, ask for a feedback, ask for a comment. How should we proceed from this point onwards? And get that help, because those people out there are willing to help you as well. I mean, you don't have to be worried about how they might think of you, but it doesn't matter, right? Ultimately, we are looking at our own progression. By all means, reach out. Sometimes what I see is mostly we don't reach out and we let of these problems or issue, or even it could be a technical problem, right? Being a software engineer, you don't get good sleep if you don't solve the problem, or else if you don't write the code, or if it is not, passing the unit tests or whatever, right? Don't let it happen. Try your best to do it. Take some time to try it on your own. But if it is not working, ask for the help. Don't let it stress out. If it is it could be a personal problem as well in the industry. How you can manage your time. There could be lots of issues that might be. Don't let it weigh you down and stress you down and bring it to a stressful situation. Rather than seek for help, talk to some person, get their opinion around it, experience of opinion around it, and see if it fits you. Doesn't mean you have to accept it, but see if it fits you. If not, maybe you can have a follow-up session, or maybe you can change the strategy and reach out to a different person. Likewise, there are no hard and fast rules how to reach out or how to get feedback. But then again, trial and errors, right? Try it out. If you're not getting it. If you're getting it, then all good, right? This is in an environment where you don't get it. So then in those situations, reach out and try things out. Don't let it stuck. You
Good
stuck
advice.
at a place. That's I think we should proceed ahead within such a way.
Not getting stuck and feeling alone. And also, this is also practice. The more you do it, the more you figure out what are the best ways to go about it. If I sort of flip it, and now, now you're at a place where you're giving a lot of feedback as well to people. So if you are the person giving the feedback, what are some tips for them?
Okay. So I would, as I mentioned, it's a learning thing. Even for the feedback giver, we learn things because we are dealing with different personalities, different persons who are coming from different backgrounds, who may be open for feedback, who may not be open for feedback, right? So sometimes building that trust with the person who is giving the feedback and the person who's getting the feedback, it is really important, and it might take a little bit of time as well. So you have to be very patient, and you have to, yes, as you mentioned, we are at a position where we give feedback as well for our juniors. At the same time, we also get our feedback from our mentor, right? So if we look at the feedback giving section, so mainly there are lots of training sessions companies itself does, right? How to give a feedback, how to understand the situation, how to understand the background of the situation, and listen properly. Always, I would start with letting the person who is with me to talk first, actually. So they will be more open and try to be better, which I'm still mastering, by the way, and and then move into giving them guidance based on my experience. It could be based on something, or else maybe if he look right, it could be on different guidance levels. So some people we might understand, okay, this person might need some trainings. It could be some coaching or area of technical support that they have to give time. We will have to put ourselves in their shoes, and also then see how he feels, try to understand as much as possible how that person feels as well. So I think those are, I'm not an expert myself, but I would try to master them, and that's how I approach to give a feedback. And out of the feedback with few action items. Okay. Now, having a chat is not enough, right? We have to see what is the aftermath of it. Are there any action items on your plate on the other person's end, right? Make it clear. And so that, next follow-up session, you can bring them up and see, okay, are we actually looking into these action items? Are we taking them up? Are we putting them into action? And then only, because no matter how much you talk in this feedback session, if you don't take the action items which comes to your plate and put them into action, the usage of or the value of having a feedback session is fairly low, right? So we have to see how we progress based on their feedback or the discussions, one-on-ones that we have with every individual. It is from both ends action items. So we have to pay attention on both of the sides, I guess.
And thanks for pointing that out, that there's actions past that to actually rectify whatever that piece of feedback is. And sometimes that part is missed. So you've had the chat, but nobody really knows what the way forward is. So really good point you made there. So how about we move to opportunities? So career opportunities. So you've, gone to different companies, sometimes even gone back to other companies you've worked at. So tell us a little bit about, the opportunities you've had in your career and how they came about.
Okay. Actually, they don't necessarily deviate from the, conversations, feedbacks. They're a little aligned as well. So because along your path, you realize your skill set, where they lies, right? And what do you want to achieve with a couple of years ahead of your time? And where you want to head towards being a software engineer, to lead to an architect, to likewise senior architect. Likewise, you can move on this career path, especially me coming from a background, right? But at the same time, our priorities also might change, right? It might be, in my case, if I personalize this to me, my situation, there were certain decisions which came along with my marriage, with different priorities when it comes to my career objectives for the next couple of years in the future. So there were couple of decision-making factors which I had, and when I started looking at opportunities as well. And sometimes opportunities comes to you, right? But sometimes you have to create them, or else look out and figure it out, right? It could come in different forms, but then again, think always not all opportunities are for you. You have to pick and choose what it is for you. And at the same time, I recall something when I learned at I was volunteering organization I was part of. I think their inauguration meeting, they said opportunities are like a buffet, right? So you have to go and pick it. Nobody will bring it out to you and hand it over to you most of the time.
Interesting.
Rather pick and choose what you want to do with those opportunities. So I actually recall it after around now 5 to 8 years, I believe. But I think that was a really good advice that I received, because you have to figure it out. You have to weigh them pros and cons and see what gives you and what aligns with your future, and then make those decisions, right? But I would first of all say, when I mean you mentioned like when moving in different places, right? When in my career, but that doesn't necessarily mean you burn bridges or you don't internally for the opportunities first. You do look for it. You see, you check, you look for the opportunities that can be made, because that's your soon, right? And these moving into a different company is very challenging. I have done it, it's very challenging, right? Because you have to build your profile, you have to earn the trust, you have to, work with build a good relationship with bunch of new people, and it's not easy, right?
Through
But then
boring
again,
induction trainings again.
yes, it's a tough process. You have to go through interview processes, of course, right? But
Yeah.
then again, look for the opportunities around you first. I mean, see how you can make it align, because you have a profile built for you, right? And you have a bunch of people who are willing to work with you. It's a comfortable zone for you. Always see the environment for the first, and then see whether they are not aligning. Maybe there are completely environmental reasons that might make you move out, uh, take up different opportunities. In my case, as I mentioned, they were so external. One is being my marriage, and second one being I wanted to do a little bit of future career change. I was being an associate architect at Virtusa, so being a very technical person, I wanted to move. When I look at myself in another 5 years or so, I wanted to try out being a technical plus being a managerial side. And I think a little bit of feedback also contributed there, because I've heard feedback like you are really good at this, like working with people, driving a team, and getting a deliverable successfully out there. So I thought my skill set might be aligning a lot in that aspect as well. And it kind of aligned with what I love to do in the future. So I guess that was also a decision-making factor. And that's how I ended up at Wiley being an associate engineering manager, which I am currently really enjoying at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
it
you
drives
mentioned,
one more point, Roni, if you don't mind. Uh, you have to keep your passion going, because now that's your path, right? You have to have that passion. You have to enjoy what you do. I think based on that, you pick and choose your opportunities. May not be the right one always, but to your context, evaluate and take up the best decision at the point of time. Yeah.
yeah. Now, you made a good point about, looking internally for opportunities, because that's sort of what's readily available to you. And sometimes when you look internally, they might actually make more exceptions for somebody they know rather than someone they don't know, like to make a new position. Or if you want to make, something like you did, you kind of you deviated your role. So sometimes it's good to, you have more of those opportunities where you already know people, where you already built that trust. But you can also change jobs to do that as well. So which, it looks like you've done a bit of both. You've looked for opportunities internally,
Of course.
and you've jumped to another place where, you can perhaps, get something, uh, you know, I know a lot of people will go to a new company where they've after they've upskilled, when they've maybe done a master's or something, you know, to see if they can go into sort of a slightly different role or jump up in the salary bands and things like that. So yeah, and so it all also, what I liked how you said was you're looking at your personal goals too. You know, you're the same person who goes to work, same person who's, you know, outside of work. So you align your career goals, your life goals. It's all one, right? You're going in the same direction. So that's very, very interesting, because I think sometimes we don't realize we're that same person and, you know, the goals align. Yeah. And before we move into questions, Malmi, did you want to add anything or give us a bit of a wrap up?
Yeah, of course. I think we are running almost out of time as well. So I think I discussed about a couple of items from the beginning, right? We initially talked about what got you into IT, but then again, what becomes a part and parcel of your day-to-day life, being a software engineer, which is the problem solving and analytical skills, and also how we approach a problem and likewise. And also at the same time, we talked about feedbacks or one-on-ones or discussions around it, and also coming up with how to look at an opportunity, kind of. These are all interrelated, I would call, because in a way, what we look for is the satisfaction. And in our day-to-day life, when you are in a working environment, work satisfaction or having that drive or the passion towards that what you do, because we spend most of our life with the work environment, right? So it is important to have these areas cleared out so you can keep your passion and the drive running. It can keep you interested, right? Rather than a job getting you stressed. So that's the reason I thought about bringing up these main 4 areas in my perspective that might help to drive that passion or the love for the work that you started to do for years of time, because we are looking at not a short period of time, right? We do a job for a long time. And how do you keep that interest and the passion running without weighing down, job weighing you down? So that's the reason I brought them up, especially whoever the forum that we have here today. So just summing it up, ultimately we look for the satisfaction and becoming a better person than you were yesterday. So I hope these things will help you a little bit of guidance to become a better person than you were like a year ago, maybe 6 months ago, wherever you are. As long as you're moving forward, even with little steps, that's what matters. So, and your own satisfaction. Just want to sum it up with that statement, Roni.
Thanks, Malmi. That's fantastic. Yeah. I think we've got some questions come through. So if anybody else has questions, please use the chat. Or you can also unmute and ask Malmi too. So we've got a question here. How do you handle multiple job opportunities coming your way at the same time?
So if you're looking for an opportunity out there, there's always multiple opportunities, right? So you have to, as I mentioned, you have to weigh them down, pros and cons based on your priorities, based on your needs, and also based on your future aspirations that you have for the next couple of years at least, whether they align with it. Sometimes it could be your driving factor might be money itself, right? But then again, if you make it a personalized to myself, it was always what keeps me interested. Or how could I keep on this passion going, and how am I spend my day-to-day life with a certain satisfaction? Okay, I did this, I contributed into this level. So it could be different from person to person and time to time in life as well, because our priorities change with time and our needs change with time. If you're starting a family, money could be actually a driving factor for you. So based on your needs and your future aspirations, you weigh down or you do a little bit of math and see what fits you the best, right? And as I mentioned, it may not be the 100% right decision after you look back maybe years of time, but at that point of time, you make a decision based on the evaluation that you do and where you want to be at in the future. You make a decision, right? It could go right or wrong, I would say, anytime. But then again, at that point of time, with the visibility and the evaluation that you do, and you pick that up, I guess.
Yeah, thanks, Malmi. And I was also thinking this is a great place to also where you can either build trust or break trust in how you handle multiple opportunities. Do you have any experience or any tips on that part as well, Malmi?
So, experience as in not burning bridges is a very important aspect, because just because you are changing your job or changing your place of work doesn't mean you have to. I mean, there are ways of doing it, work ethics, or those are basic ethics, right? Those are not hard and fast written rules, but rather than you, how you can move forward with a good relationship also at the same time, right? You have to make sure you don't harm the people around you, and it doesn't, you have to think about them. What's the impact of me taking up a different opportunity, whether I should give them more time, or likewise, you might have to think about the work ethics. I wouldn't exactly name them, but rather think about it in a way whether I'm doing something ethical. Am I doing something wrong? Am I honest to myself and I feel comfortable making this decision? Am I putting somebody in trouble by doing this? You will be sometimes, but then again, you have to minimize the impact, right? And you have to keep those good connections, because IT world is a small world, and we will meet around. We always will meet again. This circle will go
word gets
around.
around. I guess if you don't keep your word, then you become known as that person who doesn't keep their word. People don't trust you. Whereas the other way, you
don't
know,
burn the bridges.
If someone constantly keeps their word, then you build that profile in the industry as someone you can take their word for it. You know, they're just so honest. All right, we've got another question. What are some challenges you faced as a woman in the industry?
So, okay, being a woman, I would say you have a unique set of challenges being in any industry for that matter, not just software, right? But then again, I would put myself in a place and say, if you build the right skill set and if you have the right attitude and the passion, you can find a path. And let's assume you face a problem because of you being a woman. Look, consider it just as another problem which you need to solve. I mean, take it up as a problem. It might, weigh you down a bit and you might feel sad or upset about it. But then again, you take a little bit of a break and okay, fine. It's fine. I'm facing this because I'm a woman, but it's fine. It's just another problem that I need to face and solve. After you solve it, you will become a stronger person. That's all about it, right? You will learn out of it and you will learn how to handle those situations in the future also. I mean, yeah, give or take, right? Any industry we do have, being a woman, there are certain unique challenges for them because their life changes in different phases, in different levels. So I guess I would take it in a way, just as another problem, solve it, move ahead. And what I believe personally is that will make you stronger. That will give you experience for the future, because that will make you a stronger person day by day by facing more problems.
Yeah, you're right. And also a lot of companies now have structures in place to help with those kind of things. And, you don't have to feel alone. You can always reach out for help, within your team, to your managers, HR. I think sometimes we don't realize all the help that's available, or, there's some fear around asking. But I do see a lot of companies, and you can input to this as well, because you've worked across so many different companies, that companies are open to this and encourage women or anybody from a diverse background to speak up about unique challenges they have, and they do try to address it. Do you see that across different companies as well?
From my experience, yes, but doesn't mean you don't face challenges. But then again, now there's a bigger forum or where you can ask for help, right? I with this IT industry, with my experience, what I see is mostly we do have options where we can reach out to help, but sometimes people are reluctant to go. So that's the reason that I brought up the problem solving earlier as well. Don't worry about what others think about. If you have a problem or if something, pressuring you, by all means reach out. It could be a personal thing, as you mentioned. It is something because because you are being a woman or anything as such. But then again, be open about it. Have an open discussion. Have that courage to move there and ask and talk about it. And they may have a completely different opinion. It's not because of you being a woman. It's just that because of a different reason. Okay, your commitment might be different, or it could be completely different reason, because that problem is not necessarily, may not be because you are a woman, right? So likewise, don't worry about it, because it's not a lonely journey that you have in IT industry. Always don't be reluctant to ask for help, seek for help, maybe at least talk to your colleague and see, right? And where you these one-on-ones or feedback sessions, those are open forums for you to bring these concerns or issues, how you feel, the negativities that you feel, whatever, right? You can bring it into these forums and have open discussions around it. From my experience, most of the cases, this is the case when it comes to IT industry, especially from all the places I have worked with. I haven't really had a terrible experience when it comes to this situation. There are challenges, of course, but doesn't mean those were unsolvable problems being a woman in IT industry for me, from my personal
it shouldn't
experience.
deter you from getting into this field. Yep. And I might also add, if you feel like there's no avenue for you, Diversity Collective is somewhere you can come to for advice as well. So we've got a couple more questions. My English comms skills needs to improve. How do I do it? How do I do that? English and comm skills, communication skills.
So our native language is not English, right? But then again, the common problems, when we come into this industry, we are working with the international crowd most of the time, but not most of the time, pretty much all the time, right? So we need to have a common communication language, and English comes into place. But communication doesn't necessarily mean English, because it's a whole lot of things. Being promptly responsive, being able to convey your message to a bunch of a forum that is out there, and English having that vocal is a really crucial part of it, though, because that's the language that we use at the moment as a universal communication language across these forums. So you may not come with it, but there are lots of learning platforms and trainings which are offered by all of these companies that I have worked with to improve on it. And also these Toastmasters, or else it could be anything, right? Likewise, there are lots of forums where you can improve yourself on, continue to improve yourself on. And you might have received it as a feedback where you need to be more vocal in your meetings, you have to, be more interactive. Those things might come, but then again, don't be fearless, right? And because I'm sure you will have a couple of people around you, your leads, your colleagues, who will support you along the way. I mean, so far, I don't know, maybe I'm being lucky or what, but I haven't really met anybody in this industry who will laugh at you just because you are bad at something, right? So, but then again, you have to put yourself out there and keep going and keep talking and keep trying to be vocal, then you learn. And also communication, email, replies, be professional about them. And if you have other communication mediums, right, be prompt and be proactive about it. Those are really important parts, having effective communications and being prepared for meetings. So those are things that will help you, other than just English language, to be very good at communication, having good communication skills, I think, rather than just the language.
Yeah, thanks, Malmi. And you notice that, there are people who are actually pretty good with their English. Like when someone types out an email, it comes out really well, but there might be this hesitance to speak. And it's not even sometimes, that they are not good, but there's a shyness around it. And I think, like what you were saying, if you can overcome that, the sky's the limit.
Yeah. trying things out, give it a shot. And I'm sure I have somebody supports you initially also, if that's needed. So I think that will help. And eventually with the experience and the trainings, you'll get there because we all do improve with time.
Yeah. All right, we've got one more question. And before we wrap up, what if feedback I get is unfair?
Okay. So that's a fair question. Yeah. You might get unfair feedback. So let's say you go for a one-on-one, right? And you have a chat with that person and he says, okay, these things are not going right and I expected more. There could be different reasons for it, right? So in your perspective, you think that's unfair. It doesn't make sense for me. So in that cases, what you can do is, first of all, do a self-evaluation and see if it really doesn't make sense, or I mean, is it really that something wrong? It is not something agreeable to myself, and then see whether you can, get a bit of maybe talk to a colleague and see, do you think this is something that I need to pay attention to, or else, and maybe you can have a follow-up session and ask for a data set. Give me an example what I have done in this aspect. Give me a data set and see is it a valid statement that that person have made. And I said you have to talk to somebody, right? It could be a colleague, but it has to be the right person. That doesn't mean you go around asking, okay, is this the right statement about me? But you have to pick a right person that you have a good trust with and see, is it something that actually happens from me? Or else, and I would definitely ask, after having that self-evaluation, ask for a follow-up session. If it doesn't, make it a discussion and ask for the facts and data and see, okay, maybe actually that is there. It's some area that I might not have seen, or else the person who gave you the feedback might not have seen your aspect of it, right? Make it a discussion and come to agreement and come to alignment of these discussions and see how it goes, right? And let's say it really goes bad. The person who gave you the feedback is, really not a good listener, okay? So then what are you going to do? So then you have to think about, okay, do I have to reach out to somebody else? Because it is impacting my day-to-day work, right? Because somebody is thinking negatively about you and it is not helping your day-to-day work and it is stressing you down. If that's the case, whom should I reach out to next, right? You try out with that person discussion. It is also not working. See whom you should reach out to next. Other than that, to make this small conflicts or whatever. How do we put it? It could be a conflict, or it could be a glitch. It could be a rough patch, which we need to smooth it out, iron out, and make it work. So in that case, reach out to a different person that you think is the right, and then take it up from there and see how it goes. So I would say such approach might work. That's what comes to my mind, but hopefully that works.
Yep, makes complete sense. So Malmi, I think that was our last question. Thank you so much for joining us, and you shared a lot of great tips, your personal experiences, and also I think you gave us a extra bit of flavor in the questions as well. So thank you so much for joining us, answering our questions. I think we all learned a lot from you. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, I would like to say thank you for you, DCRK, and also at the same time, Wiley, for giving me this opportunity, actually. So it's a great, it's a pleasure for me being there. For me, it's a pleasure to be here. And thank you so much, everyone who joined. And also at the same time, thank you, DCRK and Wiley, for this opportunity again. Thank you.
Getting some love on the chat.